Hi, and welcome to Unraveling the Thread. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome to episode 1 of our podcast, Our Story. But this is going to follow the segments that we talked about in the intro episode. Just in case you missed that, there are going to be 3 segments. The first one is the pattern, the second one is the stitch, and the third one is behind the seams. We'll let you know when we get to each one, but we are going to start first with the pattern.
For today's episode, we wanted to share with you guys the story behind the suit shop and why we decided to start the business. It is really the story of me trying to find a wedding suit for our wedding. We got married in January of 2022, and I have always been the kind of person that doesn't like dresses or super girly feminine things, and so I had always had this idea in my head of wearing a suit when I got married, but I also liked the idea of wearing a white suit instead of just kind of a standard navy, black, gray, etc. And so I spent a while trying to find where I would even find a woman's wedding suit, white wedding suit, and my options were very few and far between. There were a few companies up in New York and definitely out towards the West Coast, but nothing super close to me and definitely nothing really within the price range that I was looking for, which was a struggle because I definitely didn't want to wear a dress, and so that's kind of what it was looking like. And so I did end up having to go to a men's big box retail store and trying to see if they could tailor a suit for me. And so my wife and I went to said big box store the very first time and picking out a white fabric. They did not have a ton of selection. Mm-hmm. And then the person who was helping me took probably 4 or 5 measurements, if that, and said everything was going to be great. And much like a lot of our clients, I have never worn a suit that was truly made for me. I've always kind of purchased things off the rack and made do. And so I thought that that was great and that it was easy and fast, and I was pretty impressed. And so it took about a month and a half to get in, and invited my mom up. I knew she'd never have the going to find wedding dresses with me, but I figured she could at least come and see the suit that I had made for my wedding. And so we went into the store and they unzipped the garment bag and they had ordered the wrong suit fabric. And so they unveiled what was the world's heaviest, ugliest brown wool suit, which was not what I ordered. And thank goodness my mom was there, because I am one of those millennials that I hate. I'm like, I'm sorry. Nope, that's perfect. I will take an ugly brown wool suit. I will wear it. It's fine. I'm sorry to be an imposition. And my mother was like, nope, this is not what she ordered. And what she ordered, I inadvertently had purchased a linen suit, which would have been very kind of look wrinkly, that kind of standard linen look, which in January would not have been warm enough and wasn't really the aesthetic I was going for. But the sales associate didn't tell me that, and I didn't know any better. And so she stepped in and saved the day, and we got talking with the manager and picked a new fabric, and he took so many more measurements because it was I'm starting from a square male pattern and trying to basically taper in at my waist and taper out for my chest and things of this nature to truly get this suit to fit the way I wanted it to. But I felt so badly that she had flown up from Tampa at the time. And so we made a day out of the rest of the day. But fast forward to a month later, 3 weeks, the guy kind of rushed it for us and unveiled a suit. I didn't fly my mother up again just yet because I was like, let me see how it even looks. And I spent the next 3 months, almost every other weekend, going in to get it tailored and altered to fit my body shape. Every time I tried it on, some tweak that they did suddenly made something else not fit quite right, and I was trying it on in the fitting room of this big box retailer. So yes, they had stalls, but I'm in there changing with a bunch of guys and coming out and trying to convince this poor tailor what needs to be My thighs were an issue. I have slightly larger thighs. So when I sat down, it pulled, and I was like, I don't want to have to worry about ripping my pants on my wedding day. So just a lot of that, and a lot of struggle and angst, and just not what you would expect or want from purchasing something to wear for your wedding day. And so I came home. I finally got it. It never truly made me feel the way I wish I had felt on my wedding, but it looked good. My wife thought
it looked better than good, but it made me really sad that she did not feel amazing on our wedding day, and that she never got the great experience that she should have had, and that she didn't feel as confident as she wanted to while she was walking down the aisle and everything. And we definitely made do, for sure, with
absolutely.
it. And like, our photos are beautiful.
Yes.
We have a great photographer. But it was a very disappointing experience. And I didn't go with her to any of the appointments after the first one because I didn't want to see, the final suit. And I was just heartbroken that she'd had such a rough experience, because I had a really good wedding dress shopping experience. And so this was kind of the catalyst for
I think
our business.
Talked to some of our friends, some of just some people that we interact with kind of on a day-to-day basis, and we realized that this was not just a wedding attire issue, that this was business wear across the board for women. Women are not one size fits all. And let's be real, ladies, since when does a medium at JCPenney's equal a medium at Dillard's equal a medium at J. Crew, etc.? How many times have you gone out to buy a pair of jeans to go, well, I wear a 12 in this company, but I actually wear an 8 in this company, and it's frustrating. And it's true, all body shapes are different, and a lot harder than men to just kind of fit into a standard shape. And so we were at a good point in our lives to quit the jobs that we were currently working and go ahead and dive into M&M Suit Shop.
And so this is kind of one of those moments for us, or was one of those moments for us, where we had an idea, we went and researched it, we talked to a lot of people, we went and looked at what's going on in the world at large with women's, custom attire in general, and specifically with suits. And we were confident enough to say, okay, like, this is an area that needs to be addressed and filled. And so we went ahead and started the suit shop. And we'll dive in more to kind of the ins and outs as we go through the episodes. But that is the story of the idea behind it, the reason why we created this. So
that is the pattern for this episode.
All right, so now we are going to start the stitch. And so again, this is more detail information. Today specifically, we are talking about our business and something that relates very much to our process. So all of this can be found on our website if you want to see it written out or need more information. But this will be the stitch.
So today, kind of in line with what we talked about during the pattern, we're going to discuss our process and when to order your custom women's wedding suit. So for us, our process takes 3 months from start to finish. So our process starts with a free consultation. Again, we can do this either in person here at our shop in Charlotte, North Carolina, or we can do it virtually via Zoom. What happens during this first appointment is we really just get to know each other. We talk to you and we see what your vision is, what you're thinking, any color inspiration pieces, finding stuff on Instagram or Pinterest, how you'd like your piece to look, or pieces.
If you know,
or trying to kind of put some things into your head to think about. And then obviously you guys asking us questions, getting to know us. We'll tell you about this process during this consultation appointment as well. But we just kind of give you a lot of information about us, about how this is going to go, to try to ease it as much as possible and make this as less intimidating as possible. Because for a lot of our clients, this is the first time getting either a custom piece of clothing or a custom suit, jacket, pants, etc. And so it can be a little overwhelming.
And we do our best during that to ask specific questions so that way you're not just like constantly having to talk and come up with everything. One of the areas we focus on is really what are the areas that you want to highlight or areas that you struggle with of your body. And if there are pieces you already own made out of anything and for any activity at all that you really like how they fit. So we do try to make this as easy on you as possible.
Yeah. And then if you're in person, you want to move forward with getting a suit from us, we go ahead and take your initial measurements. If you are a virtual client, we will send you an email that contains videos and walkthroughs of how to take all of those measurements. And then what happens is we send those measurements off to our manufacturer, who makes a mock suit. For us, this was really an important step that we have developed into our process. It was not one that we had started with. To lessen our carbon footprint, we use scrap fabric. We know that waste is a big thing in the fashion industry, and so we use some of that excess fabric that otherwise would have been thrown away to piece together what we call a mock suit. It is not pretty. You can see a lot of the threads on the seams, but at your second appointment, which is the customization and styling appointment, it gives you a physical item to try on. What we found with our clients is really having a physical piece of clothing to try on, to see yourself in, to sit, to walk around, to pretend to dance, etc., really helps bring your vision to life and figure out if there are items, bits of pieces on it that you'd like to tweak or alter, or for us, on our side of things, to make sure that the initial measurements we took create the piece that best fits your body and really helps you feel spectacular.
And this has been really great because oftentimes clients bring in the shoes that they know that they're going to be wearing. So getting to see things like, this is the shoe, so is this the length of pant I want? Same thing, if you know, oh, I'm going to wear this over a specific shirt. It's just been really, really helpful. And this is an example of a mock suit that's up here. I know you can't see all the details all that well, but it does look like your pieces. It just doesn't have the buttons and everything. And like she said, it has the threads out. So this has been just a really, really great thing for us and our clients as we've been developing the process.
Yeah.
So,
and that way, it takes about a month for us from that initial consultation appointment for us to get this mock suit in. And one of the other really beneficial things we have found is that it allows us to make these adjustments to your measurements or to your fit, to the style, without having to alter a very expensive outfit. Doing it out of the scrap fabric gives us the play and you the comfort of knowing that when you get the final piece that you've paid for, that it really is your vision and should fit your body.
Or have very minor alterations versus like these huge changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at that appointment, that is where you'll pick your fabric for whatever pieces you're getting made, any lining, custom or otherwise, to the inside of your jacket, all of your buttons from top to tail, all of the customizations, which in further episodes, podcast episodes, we'll go into some detail on all of those. But again, from jacket down to the pants. And so this is really where you can have some fun and really kind of stretch your creative muscles, or not, if that is not what you're looking for. So it's just a really fun appointment for us and for our clients, I think, combined.
And this tends to be the appointment that people bring people with them to help with the fabric selection and the customizations. This is the point where like, ooh, I get to touch and see, all the pretty fabrics.
And then once we have whatever alterations may be needed or not, once you've picked that fabric, done that customization and styling appointment, we send off that information to our manufacturer. And again, after about a month, we get your final piece in. And this will be the fabric you've picked, all of the customizations. It is, as Morgan mentioned, finished. There may be a few final alterations. That is always kind of a risk in custom clothing, to get a few minor final tweaks. But for the most part, a lot of times our clients don't even need them. with doing this mock suit step, then you can come in, or again, if you're virtual, all of this can be done virtually, and we will send you pictures of fabrics that you've chosen. We'd send you your final piece. If you're in person, then you can come try it on if you like, and then you have yourself a custom suit or suit separates.
And we hope that you love them. All right. And so for the final segment for this episode, it's going to be behind the seams. And we are actually going to talk about our story of how we met.
You know the suit shop story. So now, it's time to kind of share our story.
Yes. So Margaret did mention that we got married in 2022, but it has been a little while since we first met because we actually met when we were in college. We met our freshman year of college, and we were friends freshman and sophomore years. And then we kind of drifted apart. So that's kind of the first split that happens, so to speak.
Yeah, so we just, between our differing majors and differing friend groups, kind of ended up living in different areas on campus and kind of stopped running into each other nearly as much. And then, you went on to continue your schooling.
I did. I traveled around a little bit, a couple states, and eventually ended up here in Charlotte.
And I had stayed behind to work at the university where we met, and then bounced around to a couple different states before landing back in Florida.
So it just so happened in 2017 that Margaret's dad was still working occasionally in the Charlotte area. And so she had reached out to me.
We had stayed cordially in touch. We do the yearly, happy birthday, happy new year, how's life, every 7-8 months, year or so, but but
nothing more than that. And really short text messages. This was not we're catching up on each other's lives or anything. So anyways, so it just so happened that she texted that her dad was coming up for work and she was going to be with him, and so she asked if we wanted to meet up. And normally I would have been all for that, except I had
you were initially.
Yes,
you did say yes.
I did say yes, but I was a little more hesitant because I had just had a medical procedure done relatively recently and was still not feeling very great. So I ended up being like, yes, we can, but you have to come over here and basically sit on the couch.
Okay, so some of us remember the story better than others. So initially, when we had done this plan, you were like, yes, that's great. You had a whole bunch of stuff. We were going to go to Freedom Park. She had hit all the major spots in Charlotte, and I showed up someone may have transposed her address in the text message. So my father and I are
not purposely doing
driving
that.
Back
was
and
autocorrect.
Past her house a couple times. But yes, I showed up and you were had started feeling badly, I think that morning. And so you were like, I really hate to cancel, change our plans last minute, but do you mind? I really need to lie down. I'm not feeling great. Can we just sit around the house?
Yep.
And so it was about as awkward as you would imagine for people who hadn't really talked in 7 years, one of whom was not feeling super great. And I mentally was not in a great spot from a previous relationship. And so I had been dealing with that. And you were obviously physically not in a great spot. And so it was not a very good meetup.
No, but we both got through it, and later, and now, obviously, we know all the details of what was going on in each other's lives at that point, and a lot of more things make sense. But I just remember that she left, and I literally am like, oh my God, that was the most awkward thing ever. I cannot believe that we just did that.
To be fair, I'm not super great in small social situations anyway, so this was not surprising that was her initial response to that.
Okay, that's not true. You think you're not great in social situations, but you're fine. And it was really because there was a lot of stuff that at that point you weren't ready to share. Yeah. And so there was this whole part of your life that you just couldn't talk about and didn't want to talk about. And I just wasn't feeling good. And so there's only so many points of conversation that I also wanted to bring up when doing small things like sitting or standing was really hard on my body at that time. So yes,
So we fast forward to early 2019.
So obviously another little split.
Yeah. Again, kind of did the like happy birthday, happy new year sort of deal, text messages. And then one day we texted, doing one of these casual, hey, how are you? Haven't talked to you in forever sort of text messages. And we were reminiscing about life.
Yes.
And then kind of our lives where we were currently, and kind of the funny things that have transpired since. And one thing kind of led to another. You had let it slip that you had a crush on me.
I did, yes.
And so I, in a very brazen and bold move, decided to ask if she had a crush on me or if she still has a crush on me, and ask for the verb tense. At which point we kind of...
Oh, wait. Please wait for the fact that she texted me this, and obviously I didn't work the next day because I was meandering around the house and had left my phone in a different room.
Oh, the awkward pause.
To go, yes, into the kitchen. And I don't remember if I was like grabbing a drink or making dinner or whatever. And yeah, so she's like waiting.
Yes, I ask her, have or has, and I get nothing. And I'm not really one of those people that kind of puts myself out there, does the whole dating scene super great or at all. And so I was instantly, my mind is flashing back to AOL AIM days to be like, my bad, that was my sister on my phone. Like, just kidding. And yes, like the longest awkward pause ever, at which point you answered. And we're like, well, maybe she was not aware that I had a crush on her in college.
And at that point, like, we knew, obviously, we both like had talked about previous dating experiences at that point. But did I call you? Did you call me?
No, we did this all over text.
Okay, because I can't remember when that like transpired. But anyways, yes, continue.
So we texted long into the night and kind of decided that we'd at least kind of continue texting, get to know each other, that it had been quite a while of time since we had been in college. And obviously you had such horrific memories of this 2017
really
trip of how awkward it was, and I remembered that it was not super great. And so but it was the very start of COVID really becoming a thing, and the waves of COVID coming over and spreading and having to go into lockdown and stuff. And so suddenly having this person to text with, and then yes, eventually evolved into very long phone calls every day.
Yep.
My best friend and boss at the time could not believe the amount of texting and talking that we did on the phone.
I mean, it would be like 4 or 5 hour calls.
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
Every day. Yeah. For weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, finally we decided to do some Zoom calls and to actually kind of re-meet each other face to face, as face to face as you could do in early COVID. And so, then the phone calls kind of turned into a couple hour long Zoom calls. And we eventually decided that, why not try to actually meet in person? And so Morgan is not a fan of driving. And so I drove
long distances.
Yes, she's
okay. Well, now I'm not.
Now she's a passenger.
Now I'm a passenger princess, but before then, yes,
long distances. So the 9 hours from Tampa to Charlotte was a little outside of her range, and so I did not mind at all driving up here. My family used to always go on long car trips, so it was not a big deal. And so yes, I drove 9 hours. Well, I didn't, because we had planned for.
Oh yes.
Minor road bump. We had planned to do this face-to-face meetup, and then the night before, afternoon before, I ended up getting, I think, actually food poisoning a little bit, but in the early days of COVID, could have been COVID. And so I text her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so sick. I hope I don't, I really hope I don't have COVID in that time. And then I hope that I'm feeling better to still come the next morning. And her best friend
she's a physician assistant,
so was very in touch with, kind of some of the healthcare issues of early COVID. And so she was letting Morgan, these are all the things, all the bars Margaret has to pass to still come up and visit you. And yes, I texted her early the next morning because I don't mind getting up and driving at the crack of dawn. And yes, let her know like I didn't have a fever, still had sense of smell and taste. Feeling better. My stomach was fine. I hadn't, all of this stuff. She's furiously forwarding all this information to Maureen. And so thank God, unbeknownst to us, thank God for Maureen giving me the green stamp of approval to come up. And so yes, then I drove 9 hours up for our first meeting, and you said you were nervous the whole time I was driving. Anxious?
Yes, I was. Just because, again, I kept thinking about the past visit, and it was like, okay, because she was also staying. Like, it wasn't, a 9-hour drive. It wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a couple hours, and then she's going to go. And so I was like, oh my God, like, what if this is so awkward? And like, what am I going to do if she's in my house and it is so awkward for this long period of time? Spoiler alert.
Yes, and I was not anxious at all until I turned into her driveway, and then I was definitely a little anxious, and yeah, like showed up, and I think just the magic of having talked so much beforehand, it was, I think, kind of instantaneous.
Yeah.
And it was not awkward.
No, it was not awkward.
And it was a good long weekend.
It was a good long weekend.
3 days, yeah. 2-3 days.
And that really started us deciding to actually, yes.
I drove up 9 hours every other weekend on the weekend for a while.
A while, yes.
Enterprise and I were best friends.
They recognized her anytime she would come to get a rental car. But yeah, it was the start of our relationship that was long distance for a while. And then in 2021, like March,
this is the one milestone that neither one of us can actually super remember for sure.
Pinpoint the like time frame exactly.
We'll have to go back and look at photographic
figure this out.
evidence.
But anyways, basically, so then she ended up moving up here, which I super appreciated. At the time, I was not working a job that I could easily move anywhere else, and thankfully she was down she was down for moving, which is great because I really love the Charlotte area, and you now really love the Charlotte area.
Yes, there were a few things tying me to Tampa, but yeah, not enough, and my job was flexible enough that I could just move up to one of the stores up here.
Yep.
And so yes, much less of a niche than your job at the time. And I was renting a small 1-bedroom apartment. You had a beautiful house that that I moved into. So it was much more of kind of an established life up here.
To me, it was super brave for you to do that.
Thank you.
And I super appreciated it because, it was getting harder and harder for both of us to do long distance, and we just knew that this was it. And so we, wanted to be together as much as we could be. Yeah. And so when she moved up, it was my goal to make the house and everything really feel like ours and not mine, because we decided that we wanted to stay in this house. And so we've done that.
Yeah,
we really have. Like,
really nice job.
Yeah, definitely our home. Yeah. And then we eventually got engaged. But I don't know if we want to tell them this story
for
right
another
now.
time. Yeah. It's a good enough story that
it is. I think we'll pause there and like let that kind of be the behind the scenes for the moment. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us, and
we will catch you at the next podcast.
We are trying to do bi-weekly podcasts. So twice a month, hopefully, all things going according to plan. So thank you for joining us.
This has been Unraveling the Thread. Remember, real women wear pants.